It's not as if we haven't had anyone from ICANN show up to our meeting. In fact, we have had someone showing up as a regular, and she's going to join us again. Elise, come on up, give the IANA number functions update. That button.
That button, okay. Thanks, John. I'm Elise Gerich from ICANN, and I'm glad that you do know that I show up and that team members of mine show up, but we're also glad that Joran has joined the ARIN meeting for the first time. So, but he also mentioned that, people get up and all they do is talk about their organization. Whoops, I'm going to talk about the organization. So, sorry, warning, organization talk coming up. So I have a couple things. One is, what is PTI? Who do you contact? We're in the post-transition IANA stewardship time, so has anything changed? A lot of people ask me that every day this week. Breakfast, lunch, in between, over the bar, whatever. Also, just a quick highlight on the IPv4 recovered pool and the allocations from that. And then finally, the performance, some of the performance things we've been doing. So what is PTI? Well, during the transition discussions, the 2 years that went on, it was called post-transition IANA. Well, we tried to figure out how we could get a different name for that, so we picked Public Technical Identifiers, PTI. And basically, PTI is an affiliate of ICANN, and that is what the ICG, the Internet, or the IANA Stewardship Transition Coordination Group, called it. And they requested that there would be a new entity created to do the operations part while ICANN did the policy part for the names functions. So PTI was created, and this little diagram shows that there's ICANN, the mothership, and within ICANN there's the IANA department, and that IANA department does the IANA functions in the affiliate PTI. So this one's a little more complicated. So it shows all of our relationships, the relationships with the RIR community, the relationships with the IETF and the IAB, as well as the relationships with the naming community. But I'll just focus on the RIRs, and you can see yourself highlighted there. So basically, ICANN and the RIRs entered into a service level agreement. And Joran mentioned that briefly when he was speaking about how now we have a formal agreement between us, and that's for the performance of the service that the IANA department does for you all. So then ICANN entered into a sub-agreement with PTI, because now PTI is a legal entity, an affiliate, and they're performing the IANA functions. So ICANN has the relationship with the RIRs, and then ICANN has a contract with PTI. And then the final part, the final bubble on this slide, basically it says that the oversight happens between ICANN and the RIR community. So PTI has a responsibility to ICANN, but it's ICANN that has a responsibility to the RIR community. I hope that's as clear as mud, because everyone asks me about this all the time, so hopefully it's a little bit clearer. So there's PTI, there's the IANA department, there's ICANN. Who do you contact if you're doing something with the numbers community? Well, if you want to find out about contracts or the governance, who the directors are, all that kind of official documentation and stuff like that, you go to pti.icann.org. If you want to find out about the operations and all the things that we've done, all the registries, the IPv4 registry, IPv6 registries, the autonomous system number registries, you go to IANA.org, as you always have in the past. If you have operational questions, you can send them to IANA@IANA.org. And if you're reaching me or someone else on the IANA department staff, you would just send it to elise.gerich@icann.org or elise.gerich@iana.org, or fill in the appropriate name. A lot of folks have asked, so why didn't you get pti.org or pti.net or pti.com or pti.earth? So we actually looked into that, and they were all taken. So, you know, and we came up with a long list, about 30 different names we thought we could call PTI instead of PTI. And most people vetoed them. I mean, it's like, if you've tried to name a baby, you know how it's hard to get to a single name that everybody likes. So we stuck with PTI, and we went with this nomenclature, pti.ican.org, for all the administrative contractual relationships. And we kept IANA.org because basically it's hard-coded in so many things. And this way we didn't disrupt the community too much. There was a lot of continuity, and you can still reach us at all the same old places. So one thing I did want to point out, because it's come up at a couple meetings, that sometimes people haven't been able to find out how people, being the official requesters from the RIRs, how they request things from the IANA. So we do have documentation on our website, and if you have feedback for that documentation, or you think it's unclear or something of that nature, please feel free to send email to IANA@IANA.org, and we will take your comments into consideration as we continually look at updating and revising our documentation. So what about the IPv4 recovered pool? And as I heard today, Afrinic's in their last /8, so looks like the recovered pool may be all there is someday. So as you know, there's a global policy on how we allocate from the IPv4 recovered pool. There are 2 allocations a year, one on March 1st and one on September 1st. And we just did the March 1st allocation in March. Each RIR, as per the global policy, received a /19. There is a tool that automatically does this. I say this, I think, at every meeting. So if you want to run the tool against what's left in the allocation pool, you can, and you can see what your region will get for the next allocation. This is what ARIN received on March 1st. As you can see, a /19 is not a whole lot of IPv4 addresses, a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things, but that's the way the global policy is written. And here's the timeline for the IPv4 allocations from the recovered pool. If we receive no more IPv4 addresses, and it doesn't seem likely that we will, given what I hear about the transfers and the market for IPv4, March 2019 will be the last allocation from the IPv4 recovered pool, and that will be the last of the IPv4 addresses that the IANA department has to allocate to the RIRs. So finally, the performance. Every year we do 2 audits. We do what's called a SOC 3. It's a systems organization control audit for our processes, for our root zone processes. That's the SOC 3. We completed that one, and we had a successful audit, and we got a certification from the auditors, PricewaterhouseCoopers. Please, no jokes about the Academy Awards. But anyway, we successfully completed the SOC 3. The second audit is a SOC 2 audit, and this is a much more in-depth audit. You get more than a certification. We, the IANA department, get a big report that tells us about our processes, if we'd had any exceptions. We had no exceptions this year. And this is one of the reports that we'll be sharing with the RIR CEOs next year, because this is a requirement from the service level agreement that we signed with you all that says that we will do an audit of our systems and our processes. So we will have included the RIR processes for allocation of numbers in next year's audit. And then finally, one of the things that our SLA says is that we will start delivering a monthly performance report on the 15th of April. That's coming up very soon. This is a sample that's been shared with the RIR CEOs to get their feedback of what a sample performance report would look like. As you see, the date on this sample is July 2016. So this isn't the one they'll get on April 15th. They'll get one that covers the month of March. But this is the kind of report we've proposed, which says that, you know, we've met the SLA for acknowledgement on time, that we got the request, that we responded on time, that we implemented on time, and that we implemented it as requested. And it shows here we had an autonomous system number requests in July. We have not had any requests in October, November, December, nor January. So the report in April will only be reporting on what we did in March, and March was the allocation of the IPv4 recovered pool. That's just a heads up. That's what the report will have in it. So we are talking still with the CEOs of the RIRs to see if there's more feedback or other things or changes in this template. And they've promised that they will give us more feedback and we can make incremental changes if necessary. So if you all think you need changes, you know who to talk to. Okay? All righty. So that's all I have to say. And if you all have any questions, I'm certainly happy to take them.
Any questions for Elise?
Hi, Elise. Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. If you could go back to the slide about the return over the next couple of years. I remember last year it was mentioned that if there was a small amount that was returned back to the pool, it would then make all the numbers work perfectly, and the next time everything would go out and just be done.
That's correct. We did do that calculation, and I've dropped it off the slide because it seemed like there was no interest, but I can find that number and tell you.
Out of curiosity, do you remember, it was a very small block, it was like a 22 was needed or something like that, correct?
It was very small, like a /22.
So for
if anyone
yeah.
who has one that they want to give away.
Yeah, I was just saying, if anybody in this room has a very small block, and I'm sure that PTI could tell us what that was, that would just all go away, and the reserved pool would, or the pool that is there, would be done, and we wouldn't have to look at the slide again until something magically came back into the pool.
You don't like this slide.
I don't like the fact that it's going to take 3 years to deplete out a very little amount of.
I mean, yes, it gets incrementally smaller and smaller, and yes, I think it was a /22, but I will confirm it's on last year's slide, so I will check that and let you know if we had that amount returned to our recovered pool. Then in September, we would deplete the pool completely. Yes, John.
In that circumstance, there's an assumption that you'd never have to do any more of this, presuming no other space comes back by any means. If something else somehow were to come back, you'd have to restart the pump only with one address in it, which would be a little weird. But it's so noted. I mean.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, yes, thank you.
Hi, quickly. Javier Rua, ICANN at large, Naralo. Could you go back to your slide on the organizational structure of the PTI and just a question on
The big one or the
yeah,
little
just
one?
like the flow chart of decision, that one.
That one. Okay.
Just to, in terms of the acronyms, what's the acronym on the bottom right? RZERC?
RZERC, Root Zone Evolution Something Committee.
Okay. all right. So I just want to know what everything is there.
Yes, so that the RZERC was created to be an advisory group to ICANN if there are major architectural changes to be made to the infrastructure.
Okay, so
the internet infrastructure.
Since we're here, the other ones.
Okay,
the one on top, CSC?
CSC is the Customer Standing Committee, and that's also in the ICANN bylaws, and that's the body that was created to oversee the performance of PTI for the naming function. And so monthly we have phone calls with the CSC, the Customer Standing Committee, and we give them a performance report, much like I'll be sending monthly performance reports to the RAR CEOs.
Cool. And EC?
That's the Empowered Community.
Got it.
And you'll have to ask someone else more about that. I think that's part of Workstream 2 right now.
Yeah. I think John knows what that is.
Oh, John, go for it.
When the names community indicated that ICANN was going to be the party that represented it and contracted with someone for IANA number services, IANA name services, someone being the affiliate PTI, they wanted to make sure that ICANN was accountable to the community, and they weren't 100% confident the current board structure always fulfilled that. So they created a set of powers above the board called the Empowered Community. The Empowered Community is by California law, are the parties that appoint ICANN's directors and have other specified powers. The Empowered Community has a very specific list of powers. The ASO is one of the 5 empowered community members. So if ICANN does a fundamental bylaw change, each of these 5 organizations, the ASO, the GNSO, the ALAC, the GAC, I left someone out.
ESSEC?
No, CNSO, I'm sorry, the
CCNSO.
CCNSO, all have to participate in ratifying that change. So bylaws changes, a rejection of a budget, rejection of a contract change with IANA, all of these are things that are powers of the empowered community. These are all powers that generally should be pretty routine and not used. There is a fundamental bylaws change coming up right now that the board has approved, and somewhere between now and Johannesburg, the empowered community will set up the process to ratify that. And in the case of the numbers community, because the NRO is the party that holds that responsibility, all 5 RIR CEO executives have to say yes to anything the ASO does with the empowered community. We are in the process of setting up procedures because some of the empowered community functions involve things like ICANN directors, and that's something that we formally delegated to the ASOAC. They're the ones who select those directors. So we have to set corresponding procedures up, and we're in the middle of working out the 14 detailed procedures for the ASO to exercise its empowered community rights. That's probably a lot more than you wanted to know, but yeah, we're one of the 5.
Yeah. And Euron's nodding his head in the back, so I think you must have gotten it right, John. Did anyone else have any other questions? Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.